Welcome to Module 4, Introduction to Employment and Training Services. Hello, my name is Eric Gaona, and I'll be your instructor for this module. So far, we have covered Module 1, Adult and Dislocated Worker Eligibility, Module 2, Income Eligibility, and Module 3, Individual Employment Plan and Objective Assessments. In the last presentation of this module, Module 4, you heard from Montevia Gambo on the types of services and eligibility requirements. In this module, I will provide you with an overview of each of the training services and their major elements. The training objectives for this module are to learn about the primary ways to pay for training services, to review the adult and dislocated worker training services. In addition, we will discuss the major elements of each training service and identify which training service fits the needs of your participant. These trainings are meant to provide insight for adult and dislocated worker only, although some information applies to both youth and adult and dislocated workers. This is our job aid, and we are under step 4, training services. You learn from Montevia about eligibility for training services, including completion of an objective assessment, individual employment plan, and meeting one of their requirements, such as being unlikely or unable to obtain or retain employment that leads to self-sufficiency. I will walk you through the different ways to pay for training. There's 2 ways to pay for training: through an individual training account or through a training contract. One of these 2 methods will be used to pay training providers for their services. Individual training accounts, or ITAs. They are established on behalf of a participant. Adult, dislocated worker, and youth participants will use ITAs to purchase training services from eligible providers. However, youth funds cannot be used to fund ITAs for in-school youth. Let me repeat that. Youth funds cannot be used to fund ITAs for in-school youth. To receive funds from an ITA, the training provider must be on the state's eligible training provider list, or ETPL. Lastly, the training must be directly linked to occupations that are in demand in the local workforce development area or that have a potential for sustained demand or growth. Training contracts. Training contracts may be used to provide training services instead of an ITA. However, they must meet one of the following requirements. I will cover the first 2, so please take time to come back to the slide. Training contracts may be used when such services are on-the-job training, customized training, incumbent worker training, or transition employment, or when there's an effective local program that serves individuals with barriers to employment. For example, you may have a local provider that specializes in providing training services to people with disabilities. This training provider has all the resources and expertise that makes it more suitable to provide training services to this specific population. Keep in mind, a local workforce development area may provide training services only if it submits a request to the state for a waiver. Training services can be best visualized by dividing it into 2 categories. Trainings before getting the job, meaning you receive the training and acquire the skills before beginning the job, and training while on the job, meaning you get the job and at the same time acquire the skills to perform the job. The types of services before getting the job include occupational skills training. Many of you are probably familiar with this one. Skills upgrading and retraining, job readiness training, adult education and literacy activities. And the trainings while on the job include on-the-job training, customized training, incumbent worker training, transitional job, registered apprenticeships, and work experience. I will cover all of these trainings today. The first training I will cover is occupational skills training. Occupational skills training is typically provided through an ITA, meaning that ITA is simply the mechanism through which occupational skills training is provided. ITAs are not a type of training. Occupational skills training must provide practical skills that help an individual be proficient in a trade or profession, align with the goals identified in the IEP, last long enough to learn the skills necessary to achieve your career goal, and lead to the attainment of an industry-recognized post-secondary credential. We arrived to our first scenario. John is a dislocated worker who has recently lost his job as a bank teller through no fault of his own. Because he lives in Savannah and enjoys fishing as a recreational activity, he decides he'd like to become a fisherman. The fishing industry has been declining, but John is confident he can earn good money. Can an ITA be established on behalf of John to pay for the service? Please answer with A, B, C, or D in the chat. Would you say A, yes, fishing is a thriving industry in Savannah and he will make a good living? B, no, John needs to first prove he can be a good fisherman. C. Yes, John found a training provider that will teach him all the skills he needs. Or D. No, being a fisherman is not an in-demand occupation in Savannah. If you answer D, you are correct. Remember, in order to establish an ITA on behalf of a participant, the training identified must be linked to an occupation that is in demand in the local workforce development area or likely to grow in the future. Next, we have on-the-job training. OJT is a training program that allows employers to teach new employees the skills necessary to perform a job adequately, while partially reimbursing employers for the loss of productivity during the training period. OJT services are available to underemployed or unemployed adults and dislocated workers who meet WIO eligibility requirements and are suitable for training services in order to obtain or retain employment that leads to self-sufficiency. The participant must be hired by the employer at the start of the training period. For individuals to be eligible, there must be a gap between the skills they possess and the skills that the job requires. The difficulty of the job and the skills gap determine how long the paid training period will last. Consideration will be given to the skill requirements of the occupation, academic skill level of the participant, prior work experience, and the participant's individual employment plan. OJT training reimbursement to employers is compensation for the costs associated with training participants. This includes extra supervisory efforts, non-productive time, material waste, and the costs associated with the lower productivity of the participants. During the training period, an employer can be reimbursed for up to 50% of the wages of the participant. However, some employers may be eligible to receive a wage reimbursement rate of up to 75%. To be eligible for this 75%, the employer must meet one of the following criteria, some of which include the employer must be a small business, as defined by the Small Business Administration. The OJT must lead to the participant's attainment of an industry-recognized credential. The participant must be an individual with barriers to employment, or the participant's job title must be on the state in-demand occupation list. Our second scenario. Sophia has been working for Coca-Cola for 5 years. Her supervisor determines she needs more training to perform her tasks more adequately and recommends her for the OJT training. Is Sophia eligible? Please answer with A, B, C, or D in the chat. Will you say, yes, she needs more skills to perform her job adequately? B, no, she's not a new employee. C, yes, her employer recommends her, so she must be eligible. Or D, she is productive enough. If you answered B, you are correct. OJT is for new employees only, and Sophia is not a new employee. She has been working for Coca-Cola for the past 5 years. Customized training. Customized training is assigned to meet the special training needs of an employer by allowing them to tailor and design work-based skills training with the support of a local workforce development area. CT is ideal for programs that may not include a WIO-accepted industry-recognized credential or that are provided by training providers that are not on the state's eligible training provider list. CT is only used for new employees and with the employer's commitment to hire upon successful completion of the training. CT can be provided after a WIO participant is hired or if the employer makes a commitment to hire the participant upon successful completion of the training. Employers may be reimbursed by the WIO program for up to 50% of the costs. The costs may include cost of instruction, curriculum development, and cost of training materials and books. The purchase of equipment, administration, and renovation of facilities are not allowable. The costs also do not include employee wages during training. Incumbent worker training. While similar to customized training in the reimbursement of training costs, incumbent worker training is designed for existing employees rather than new ones. Incumbent worker training can be used to either help prevent potential layoffs of employees or obtain the skills necessary to retain employment, such as increasing the skill levels of employees. If not used as part of a layoff aversion strategy, the IWT program will lead to increased pay and skill for an employee. Local areas may utilize up to 20% of their adult and dislocated worker funds for incumbent worker training. Administrative costs, such as staff costs, must be paid from the LWDA administrative funds. Employers are required to pay the non-federal share of the cost of providing IWT. The minimum amount of employer share depends on the size of an employer and may not be less than 10% of the cost for employers with 50 or fewer employees, 25% of the cost for 51 to 100 employees, and 50% for employers with more than 100 employees. All employees participating in the IWT must meet the eligibility requirements below. However, I would like to emphasize the last bullet point. An employee must have an established work history with the employer of at least 6 months at the time of training. Workers employed less than 6 months can participate in the training only if the majority of the IWT cohort meets the requirement. An incumbent worker is also unique in that individuals do not have to meet the eligibility requirements for career and training services for WIOA, unless they are also enrolled as a participant in the WIOA Adult or Dislocated Worker Program. Our first poll question. Under customized training, employees can only be reimbursed for up to 50% of the costs. Please answer A or B in the chat. If you answer true, you are correct. Under customized training, employers may only be reimbursed up to 50%. However, you could have been thinking about on-the-job training, which they can be reimbursed up to 75%. Moving on to transitional jobs. Transitional jobs are a type of work experience that are time-limited and subsidized in the public, private, or nonprofit sector, provided to individuals with barriers to employment who may be chronically unemployed or have an inconsistent work history. I will define what these terms mean next, combined with comprehensive employment or supportive services, and designed to help participants establish a work history, demonstrate success in the workplace, and develop skills so that they can get and retain a job without assistance. Transitional jobs is great for populations with multiple employment obstacles because it helps build work experience and workplace skills. Unlike on-the-job training, there's no requirement that the employer retains the individual. However, retention is preferred when appropriate. Local workforce development boards may use up to 10% of their combined total of adult and dislocated worker allocations for transitional jobs to individuals with one federally defined barrier to employment or chronic unemployment or inconsistent work history. This is a comprehensive list of federally defined barriers to employment. I will not go over all of them, but some include being a low-income individual, justice involved, or recipient of public assistance. Individuals with chronic unemployment or an inconsistent work history are those who have been unemployed for 13 weeks or longer, were unemployed for at least 26 of the past 52 weeks, or have held 3 or more jobs in the past 52 weeks and are currently unemployed or underemployed. Moving on to work experience. Work experience is a planned, structured learning experience that takes place in a workplace for a set period of time. Typically, we think of youth when we talk about work experience, but it can also be applied to adult and dislocated workers and is a great tool for individuals with barriers to employment. A WEX must include academic and occupational education. The intention of a WEX is to enable participants to explore career options, develop skills, and gain exposure to the working world. Individuals placed in a WEX are considered trainees. A WEX is really great for individuals with barriers to employment because it helps establish those basic work skills. A WEX may be full-time or part-time, depending upon the needs of the participant, and may be unpaid or paid as appropriate. We have our second poll question. A WEX can be applied to both youth and adult and dislocated workers. True or false? If you answer true, you are correct. Work experience can be used for youth, adult, and dislocated workers. It can help individuals of all ages explore their career options and develop their skills. And lastly, we have registered apprenticeships. Registered apprenticeships, or RA, combine paid-on-the-job training with related instruction to progressively increase workers' skill levels and wages. RA is also a business-driven model that provides an effective way for employers to recruit, train, and retain highly skilled workers. An RA does not have a unique funding mechanism. Local workforce development areas may use an ITA to support the classroom portion of an RA program, and OJT funds may be used to support the on-the-job elements of the RA program. A local workforce development area must limit the OJT portion of the RA to the duration necessary for the participant to become proficient in the particular occupation for which the training is being delivered. So it should only last for as long as the participant needs to become proficient in the particular occupation. Typically, RAs last from 1 year to up to 5 years, depending on the trade. In determining the appropriate length of the OJT, local workforce development areas should consider the skills requirement of the occupation, the academic and occupational skill of the participant, prior work experience, and the participant's IEP. These are my resources. That concludes my presentation on employment training services. Thank you so much for your time and attention.